Well, if you were tuned in yesterday, you know we had quite an interesting program. It got extra interesting when I offered a $100,000 reward for a certain piece of information. I had all kinds of people calling in attempting to claim that. And frankly, in the heat of the discussion, I forgot exactly what I had said when I made the offer. So I asked my secretary to be so kind as to go back and do a transcript so I would know exactly what I had said, because there were people calling in trying to work all the angles to try to get that $100,000. Oh, by the way, I found out how to get activity out there on the line. So anyway, of course, we usually have plenty of callers anyway. But here's what I exactly said for those of you that were tuned in yesterday. I had read an article which stated that Palestine was that Jerusalem was the capital of Palestine. I mean, they said this in an article without blushing. And I looked at that and said, wait a minute. Jerusalem's never been the capital of Palestine. So in order to dramatize the fact, I said, here's the words I said, I'm quoting word for word now. Can anybody tell me for $100,000, could you please give me one historical record that Jerusalem has ever been the capital of Palestine? Look at these articles. It says that the initiative is to demand freedom from Palestine and its capital, Jerusalem. When was Jerusalem the capital of Palestine? $100,000 if you can name the date. The reason I'm so generous is because I know I'm not going to have to pay, because Jerusalem has never been the capital of Palestine. As a matter of fact, it has never been the capital of any nation except one in the history of the world. Listen carefully. Jerusalem has only served as the capital to one nation, the nation of Israel. Jerusalem was Israel's capital for right about 1,000 years prior to the dispersal of the Jews from the Holy Land by the armies of Rome in 70 AD. But the offer was, if anyone can give one historically supported record that Jerusalem has ever been the capital of Palestine. And the fact is, it has not at all. By the time I left here, though, I began to wonder, what did I actually say? Because we had one of our good callers trying to say, well, Jerusalem was the capital of Judah. And, of course, Jerusalem was the capital of Judah for a long time, and Judah was part of Israel. It was one of the 12 tribes of Israel. As a matter of fact, I had actually looked up a scripture before I looked at the transcript. 1 Kings 12:17 says, "But as for the children of Israel, which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them." So Judah was considered children of Israel, as well as the nation of Israel, the 10 tribes to the north. But that's not even entering in, because that wasn't even the question. The question was, can anyone show that Jerusalem was ever the capital of Palestine? And the answer, of course, to that is no, it has not happened. So frankly, by the time I walked out in my office area, I looked at someone and said, hey, do you have $100,000 you can loan me? I may need it. But anyway, fortunately, we're not going to need it. But it was an interesting exchange yesterday. And I'm sure that there were some people studied about Jerusalem yesterday and last evening that never have before. So we all probably learned some things yesterday. And me, I learned to be a little bit more careful, because if I say the wrong thing, there's all kinds of sharp people out there looking to work the angles, especially if there's some money involved. So anyway, thank all of you that participated yesterday. Today we're going to be talking about events that are moving rapidly in the Middle East, because this coming Friday could be an unprecedented event. Every year they have what is called Land Day or Earth Day in the land of Israel. And it's a time when the Palestinians commemorate the fact that they lost land when they launched a war against Israel on May the 15th of 1948. So they mourn the fact that they launched a war and lost land. They don't mourn the fact that they launched the war. They mourn the fact that they lost land as a result of losing the war. They think they should be able to start wars and not lose anything. and just say, oh, wait a minute, you took our land because we launched a war against you, you must give it back. Now, that's what they think, and they've tried that over and over again, and frankly, sometimes it has worked. It certainly worked for Egypt. Now then, Egypt has all the Sinai back, which she lost after launching a war against Israel in the 1967 war. Nevertheless, we talked about that, and the reason we're talking about these things is because they have everything to do with the prophecies of the Bible, the prophecies of the end time. We're talking about a prophecy that says there will be a peace agreement reached, and that the area called Judea Samaria, most of it is going to be given to the Palestinians for their state. There will be left out there a large number of Jewish people living under Palestinian control, and that will set the table for one of the worst slaughters that the world has ever known. Jesus described it this way in Matthew 24, verse number 15 through 21. He said, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth let him understand, then let those which be in Judea, that's the occupied territories, as some people refer to it, or disputed territories. Let those Jews which be in Judea flee into the mountains, because then will be great tribulation, such as never has been before, nor ever again shall be. Now, involved in that equation is the dispute over Jerusalem, because Jerusalem, when the 12 tribes split into 10 and 2. Jerusalem did end up being the capital of Judah. Originally was the capital of all of Israel, but then when the tribes split, Jerusalem was the capital of Judah, and Samaria became the capital of the nation of Israel at that particular time. And that's the way it went on until the nation of Israel was driven into captivity. What was that? Something like 721 BC. And they were carried away out of the land. Then Judah continued on even until the time of Jesus Christ, and finally they were dispersed in 70 A.D. by the Romans. So that's a little bit overview of what's going on. But anyway, this coming Friday, March the 30th, they're planning a march on the nation of Israel. They're hoping to bring, well, they're hoping for millions, but it's going to be closer to thousands, if that. They're trying to make sure there are at least thousands, because several thousand landed in the Damascus airport today, flying in from Iran. So Iran is the prime mover behind all this, plus Syria is participating because they're trying to pull the world's attention away from their horrible problems where they've killed 10,000 of their own people, rising up, hoping for freedom. Now then they're trying to draw attention away from that to the nation of Israel, and the fact that many people in the world think that Israel should give that land to the Palestinians. Now, I want to make sure you understand one thing. This land never did belong to the Palestinians. It was under British mandate prior to the 1948 war. The British withdrew on May the 14th, and so Israel was left to fend for herself. So Israel declared herself an independent nation in compliance with the United Nations mandate, which had been created on November the 29th of 1947. So Israel said, we're accepting the UN mandate, we declare ourselves independent. Well, that's when the Arabs launched a war the next day. I think either 5 or 7 Arab nations, including Jordan, Syria, Egypt, launched a war against Israel, hoping to drive the fledgling nation into the sea before it could actually catch its breath. But it didn't work. God intervened, and not only did Israel survive, but actually, when the armistice lines were drawn, Israel controlled more territory than when the Arabs had attacked a year prior to that. But what happened was, when the British pulled out, the nation of Jordan, the army of Jordan, moved in for the attack. They moved in, and when the armistice lines were drawn, the country of Jordan controlled the area called Judea Samaria, or the West Bank, and all the way up to half of the city of Jerusalem. They controlled the old city, including the Temple Mount at the time. So those lines held until 1967. So this was not Palestinian territory. It was Jordanian-controlled territory. In 1967, when the war broke out, when Nasser of Egypt and Assad of Syria decided to launch their attack against Israel, Israel, of course, preempted that attack when they saw it was inevitable. and Israel drove all the way to the Suez Canal in the south, took the entire Sinai, and they also took the Golan Heights in the north, which Israel had used to bombard them on almost a daily basis for a long time. And then they said to Jordan, if you'll stay out of this war, we'll leave you alone. You leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. Jordan just couldn't do it, and so they launched an attack against Israel. As a result of the Jordanian launched attack, Israel counterattacked and drove the Jordanian forces back and across the Jordan River. The Jordanian forces were glad to go home anyway because that wasn't their land or their home. They were just occupiers of the land. So now then they're trying to say Israel occupies this territory. Well, the truth of the matter is the territory belonged to no one. The United Nations tried to partition the land in 1947. Israel accepted the partition. The Arabs rejected it and said, no, we prefer to go to war. So consequently, since the partition was never accepted, it never became a legal thing at all. It was offered, it was rejected by the Arabs, and consequently the borders between Israel and the Arab neighbors have been determined by war since that time. So that just gives you a brief overview of where we are right now. Now they like to call it the occupied territories. Who's it occupied from? Not the Palestinians. There's never been a Palestinian state there. The concentration of Palestinian populace is down in the area of the Gaza Strip. So yes, there were some Palestinians living in that area, and there were others that were living in that area as well. So anyway, when it's all said and done, these are the disputed territories, but they are part of the promised land that God offered to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, now then, we're having this march to Jerusalem, and it's very, it's like a foreshadowing of what the Bible says will happen in Armageddon. All nations will gather against Jerusalem to battle. And, well, you never know. Armageddon could happen on on Earth Day, on the Arab Earth Day. It could happen because this is very much similar to what will happen then, only this right now is going to be a march of civilians, but at the Battle of Armageddon, it will be a march of armies against the nation of Israel. They will come fully armed, ready to invade the nation of Israel. That will trigger the Battle of Armageddon, which will rage for a while. We don't know exactly how long, but it will culminate when Israel's on the brink of defeat. It will culminate with the second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. He will come, destroy the Antichrist, the false prophet, and then we will crown him King of Kings, Lord of Lords. That will begin 1,000 years of peace on earth, goodwill toward men. So that's where we're headed.